Hello, everyone, and good afternoon. I hope you're all staying safe and well, and importantly, staying sane in some unusual circumstances. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm joined today by our wonderful guest speaker, Lauretta Roberts, who's the co-founder and CEO of TheIndustry.fashion. And Loretta is going to share with us some of the findings of their recent consumer research on how COVID-19 is impacting the current consumer behaviour. But just before we start, a few things. We are live, so please bear with us. We haven't had any technology issues so far, and I have kicked the cats out the room, so fingers crossed we're all good for the next hour. We are also leaving the chat function open as well, so please feel free to say hello and send us any messages. We love to see you interacting with each other. We will also be doing questions, so please, if you can submit your questions through the questions tab, we've got plenty of time at the end to answer them all. And added to that, we've also got a few polls in the session as well. So when the time comes, please do get involved. Just click on the polls tab at the top and just send us your thoughts. And lastly, just feedback. We really'd like to know what you think of our sessions. So towards the end, I'll drop a few questions into the poll. And if you can just click away and tell us what you think. And after this session, I will send you all an email with the links so that you can replay this video or share it. And if you have any comments or suggestions for future sessions that we could potentially look at, so for example, maybe something around visual merchandising, designer interviews, or something around e-commerce, please feel free to get in touch. But without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Lauretta.
Thank you, Suzanne. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm actually going to minimize the chat while I'm talking because it might be a distraction, but I just wanted to say hello. Look at you all joining in. It's so exciting. It's the first time I've done a live webinar with Hive. So I'm really pleased to be with you today. And I can see I've got people from Italy and Beijing and London. I'm just delighted. The Netherlands. Bless you all. I'm just so thrilled that you're here to join us today. And I hope that you learned something today and that you are all doing well in this really, really challenging time. I'm going to start by telling you a little bit about TheIndustry.fashion. I hope some of you are already consumers of our content, but just in case you're not, I hope you'll bear with me while I just give you a little bit of background before we launch into the report that we've just done on consumer behaviour during the era of COVID. So who is behind TheIndustry.fashion? These are the two co-founders. I'm hoping my fellow co-founder somewhere amongst you on this chat at the moment. But my name is Lauretta Roberts, as Anne kindly said. I'm a business journalist by trade, and I've been writing about business for about 20 years, and most of that time I've been writing about the fashion industry. I was formerly at Haymarket Publishing. Well, that's where I started my career. Then I went to EMAT, where I edited Drapers, which I'm sure you've heard of. And after that, I went to Trend Forecaster WGSN before setting up TheIndustry.fashion with this gentleman here, who is Anthony Horman. He's got a similar level of experience to me, but he has both media and retail experience, online retail experience through mywardrobe.com and Birchbox. We've also got a team of journalists, designers, and generally useful people that work with us, but this is us. So I thought you'd be interested to know that. If you haven't visited our website, please go ahead. It's at TheIndustry.fashion, and our proposition is divided into essentially 4 key areas. It's all the in something. So we have the insight, which is our news, views, interviews, and daily newsletter. That's free for you to sign up for. If you want daily fashion news, interviews, please just go ahead and sign up. We send it every day, and the website is updated every day with stories. We've also got a directory of more than 800 fashion businesses with about 35 data points on each in the intelligence section of our site. Please go and look at it. You might find it useful. You might find people that you'd like to read about. You might like to be in it yourself. And if you are, please send us your details. We will upload you, free to be in there. Our business model is funded by suppliers and advertisers. So for the retailers among you, all of this content is free for you. So please go make the most of it. We also publish something called The Index, which is a monthly brand and retail tracker. This is mostly interesting for larger retailers, but I think the independents among you will still find useful data in that. I'm going to reference it a little bit in my presentation. So if you do go on the site, take a look at that. Our final strand is our insider strand. We do, when we're permitted to do so, lots of live events in the format of in-conversation events, masterclasses and forums. We can't do those right now, of course, but we will be starting those as soon as it's safe to do so. But we have, in order to keep you connected to us, just launched a weekly podcast. And again, it's free to view. You can go and see it on our website. So please do go check us out. And I hope you enjoy the content. We are doing it for you. So tell us what you want and we will keep doing more of it. So that's a bit about us. Now, the focus of today is going to be a study that we recently did. One of the main parts of our business is consumer studies. We're surveying fashion consumers every month, particular for our index product, but also sometimes around topical issues. And we have surveyed 2,000 nationally representative fashion shoppers in Great Britain. These are anonymous studies, so people can be as honest as they like, and we use a professional polling company to interview them. The results in these studies are broken down by gender, age, location, and socio-economic groupings. So whoever your consumer is, and I realise you'll all be targeting slightly different people, you can look at the results and pass it by your most appropriate demographic, just to get an idea of how your kind of customer is feeling right now. This study that we took, the COVID consumer, was carried out the beginning of April. In the UK, we had just gone into lockdown, so physical retail had been closed down for around about 7, 8, 9 days when we did this study. So we got a very early indication of how people were feeling when they were basically confined to their houses, most of them, those who were not key workers, of course, and also how that pre-lockdown period had affected their attitudes towards fashion and their spending and buying behaviour. So that's a bit of background about this report I'm going to tell you about. I'm going to break my presentation down into sort of behaviour in lockdown and predicted behaviour post-lockdown, just so that you get a view of that. So let's start with shopping under lockdown. Some slightly depressing numbers on the right-hand side here, but they will come as no surprise to any of you who have retail stores or online businesses or wholesale brands. It's estimated that UK fashion will lose 26.1% of its value this year. So that's about £14 billion of lost sales. It's pretty catastrophic by any stretch. Talking about the whole year, we're not just talking about this lockdown period, because demand is expected to be suppressed post-lockdown. So we're not expecting people to rush out into the streets and start buying fashion in the same way that they were prior to lockdown, for a number of reasons: that they don't feel safe going out, that they are concerned about their jobs, etc., etc. And they're living their lives differently, because we're all working from home, I'm working from home, and a lot of people will continue to do that moving forward. So it will change their behaviour in terms of what they're buying and where they buy, and we'll explore that as we move through the presentation. I hope that some of that changed behaviour, for those of you who are among the independent retail community, will go into your favour, but let's talk about that later. People are shopping though. These two slides, they're in the report that you will get to download after the webinar. These two slides ask people, had they already bought these things in a state of lockdown, and did they intend to buy them in a state of lockdown? Frankly, most people, just over half, weren't buying anything, but those that were buying were still purchasing fashion. Things that we witnessed were that sportswear and sports footwear were on the increase. That goes, that stands to reason. Most of us are trying to retain a little level of fitness while we're locked down. Children's wear went up, as did things like nightwear and underwear. So there's this whole idea of cocooning, dressing our kids who are normally in school uniform, and trying to stay fit. Also sales of tops, and you will have seen this. I'm sitting here, you can only see my top half. People were worried about what they were wearing on their top half, so sales of tops went up. So people were still buying, but clearly demand is massively suppressed, and that will continue for the rest of the year. We estimate that to get back to 2019 levels in the UK will probably take until 2022. This has been a huge trauma for fashion, no doubt, and you will be more aware of that than I am, I'm sure. So that's about demand. Now I want to look at the drivers. As I said, some people are buying, and will continue to buy for the rest of the year. But what will make them buy? I was sort of loath to put this slide in because I know that discounting isn't a word that we like to promote in fashion. We're trying to get away from this. We're trying to reset and do less of this. But we have to be realistic that sometimes the only way that we're going to get people to purchase something is if we give them a special offer of some form. Now, I wanted to point out to you just an interesting observation from all of this. It will be utterly unshocking for you to learn that if you give people a discount, they are more likely to buy. And that is the most popular method for getting younger people to buy. But younger people in general are more predisposed towards buying fashion in lockdown. You only have to look at somebody like Boohoo that's actually managed to increase its sales in lockdown to realise that young people still want to look good, even when largely confined to their homes. And that's got an awful lot to do with the image that they're trying to portray on social media. But also that brand in particular has been very smart in that it has been able to pivot its offer to lockdown suitable product. So young people more predisposed to spend, but also more predisposed to spend if you give them a discount. But I wanted to just draw your attention to the age demographic. I don't know if I can do any pointers on here, but in the middle of the chart towards the right hand side, older consumers, when we asked them if they were going to buy anything during lockdown, only 17% of older consumers, that sort of 55 plus market, said they intended to buy anything at all. This makes an awful lot of sense. These people are facing the most stringent constraints to their lifestyles at the moment, and probably the most lengthy constraints to their lifestyle at the moment. But when we said to them, what about if we gave you a discount, would you go shopping? More than half of them said, oh yeah, no, I would. So it feels to us that if you are in that market, they are the ones that will perhaps be the most susceptible to change their behaviour if you offered them a discount for, I guess, understandable reasons. Not to say that they won't buy from brands they want to support and favour, but it's just an observation for you there. So that's discounting. We're going to rush past it because I know it's a dirty word, but I'm sorry I had to bring it up. This one is another key driver to spend, and I'm sure you're all focused on your social media and marketing at all times, but it becomes all the more important in the circumstances in which we're operating right now. Again, you will be unsurprised to learn that young consumers are still very engaged with social media at this time. They are still following brands and retailers on social media at this time. But if you look at this chart, and you'll get the chance to look at it in more detail when you get the report to download, that black bar in the middle are all the people that have stopped following fashion brands on social media during this time. So either they know they can't afford it, they don't want to buy it, so they just want to sort of remove that temptation, or they just don't feel like they want to hear from fashion retailers right now. And I think that is quite tough, but it's a fact that we have to accept. There are a lot of people in the market who just think, you're not relevant to me right now, please go away. And that's a bit upsetting, but there are things you can do to mitigate that. There's another chart in the report that you will download, and the picture is similar for influencers. Younger people are more likely to follow them, but they're also more likely to unfollow them at this time as well. But I do think for those of you who are selling during this time or trying to sell during this time in the independent space, this is an area where you can really improve your business and do very, very well. I've seen some very nice examples of social shopping. I'll show you one shortly, where brands themselves are connecting to the consumer. They're not using influencers, they're not using third parties. They are being very honest and open and authentic and communicating directly to their consumers via their social channels, standing in their shops that they're not able to open at this time, and is creating a great connection and a great level of knowledge for that brand with their consumers. I recently interviewed a large fashion investment company, and I just wanted to share a slight anecdote with you. This chap invests in massive companies globally, and in particular tech-driven companies, and he was explaining to me what made companies attractive, which companies would succeed in a post-COVID world. It's a conversation for another time, but I did put to him, but what about the little guys? What about the smaller retailers? How on earth can they compete with a Zara? How on earth could they compete with H&M? And he said, oh, but they've got an advantage. They've got fans. And they've got fans in the way that Zara doesn't have fans, in the way that H&M doesn't have fans. They know their customers really well and they can communicate with them on a very personal level. They're lucky. And I think that social media has enabled some brands to do that incredibly well, even though they've not been able to connect with their customers physically during this time. So I just wanted to give you that word of encouragement. You've got something that the big brands don't have, and that I think means something to people more right now than it ever did. So don't forget about that connection. I wanted to just do a little poll because it's it's allowed on this platform. So I just wanted to know, I'm curious to know, and Suzanne, it's over to you to control this poll. Have you, as a brand, increased your social media activity under lockdown, or have you left it the same? I'd really like to know.
Yep, Lauretta, the poll is live. If you want to click on the polls and just answer,
I'm going to click on it. There
you can see the results coming through.
So if you so well done, everybody. I'm really pleased to see this because I was worried that people would be hiding away. So I'm sure you can all see that too, but it's moving up. 68. It's gone down a bit. Okay, 68% of you have increased your social activity at this time. I think that will set you in good stead for when lockdown lifting takes place, because your customers, it's rising all the time. You're a very good student. Well done. We're up to more than 70%. If you have retained connection with your consumers, even if you've not even been able to sell them so much as a pair of socks, they will thank you for it afterwards. I've got a slide on what it is they want to hear from you right now shortly, but I'm really pleased to know that most of you are continuing to do that and increasing your activity there. You will reap the benefits, believe me, after COVID. I enjoyed that poll. Now I wish I put lots more in this presentation, but next time, if I'm invited back, I'm going to do lots of these. That was good fun. Thank you for taking part in that. The other driver to spend during lockdown is clearly channel. There wasn't really much point in me saying to you lots of people are shopping more online now, because that's pretty much, when it comes to non-essential retail, all that they can do, unless you've been able to sneakily open your shop. I don't know, but the only way they've ever been able to consume you right now is online. But this slide's actually taken from our index reports, and they are free to view on our site, so please go and look at those. We thought it would be useful to just show you typically the channels people prefer to shop by. And independent retail comes in at about 17% as the preferred channel. So in normal times, where do you prefer to shop for your fashion? In store. And independent retailers are preferred by 17% of our survey. We do this every month and we get a similar picture every month. There's not an awful lot of movement here. Clearly chain stores are the preferred option. And again, this is in store. We do a different question for it online. But when you look at this slide, do take a look. The interesting thing here for me, again, is the independent retailers are more popular among young people than they are among older consumers. I actually expected it to be the other way around. So you've got an opportunity here that there's a young customer, they are the future. If you're in that space or you want to attract a younger customer, they like to shop independent. They're engaged socially. It's just something to put in your head. If you're looking to future-proof your business, you could pick up that customer if you had the right product and the right content for them. When it comes to shopping online, go to the index and download it to read more of it. I can't put every slide in here. Independents are naturally somewhat less popular because the most popular method for shopping online is the pure play pure play online retailer. If you're an ASOS or a Boohoo, people will gravitate more towards you than they would Topshop or somebody like that, because there is that perception of expertise and service, that these people know what they're doing and I can rely on them, and they have probably got more choice. So online pure play retailers are by far the most popular method for shopping online. The other driver for spend during lockdown, and it will become important post lockdown, will be ethics. And and I picked this up on this slide here. We asked people what they wanted to hear from you right now. And I mentioned that if you're engaged socially with your customers, if you're still continuing with digital marketing, these are the things they would most like to hear from you. Yes, they'd like to know about special offers and discounts. That's the most popular thing they'd like to hear about. However, I thought this was quite interesting, and I'll circle back to this point later on. But the second most popular piece of content they'd like to hear from you as fashion brands and retailers is details of how you are supporting your staff during this time. And that came in at 3 percentage points higher than details of how you're supporting your community at this time. And I think that's a very good point as we come out of lockdown, which hopefully we will do soon, that you might want to bear in mind, and you might want to make sure your customers know about when you're encouraging them to return to your stores, that you have looked after your staff during this time, you have been good citizens. Personally, as a consumer myself, as well as an observer and commentator on this market, what I don't like to see is is brands and retailers who have not been that great to their staff, but then make some grand charitable gesture. You have to do both, but start with your staff. Start with looking after your staff and making sure that they're coping right now, and then make the grand charitable gesture, because people will see through that you're just doing something for the point of PR. That you are a good person, that you are looking after your staff, speaks much more authentically to the culture of your brand on an ongoing basis, not one-off, not one-off bits of philanthropy. Do those as well, but get the basics right in your business as well, because people understand that that's your day-to-day operation, the day-to-day ethics of your brand. So I thought that was just an interesting slide to share. There are still some people who don't think that brands should be publishing at all on social media at this time, but frankly, you're going to have to ignore those kinds of people. If they're not engaged, they're not useful to you right now. So something to think about. Right, I want to ask you this very self-interested question, because I love shopping and I want to get back into shops. But also I'd be keen to know, so this is the second bit of audience interaction here. In the UK, and I know that some of you here are not from the UK, so I apologise, this isn't really a poll for you. In the UK, fashion retailers, non-essential retailers, are anticipated to be opening in a phased manner from the 1st of June. It is expected that the smaller retailers will be among the first cohort. I'm interested to know, for those of you who have a physical store or physical stores that are closed right now, whether or not you are preparing now to open them straight away on the 1st of June, whether you're going to sit and wait until you know that the demand is there, because it really does depend on the location of your business and your demographic, whether or not it's even worth opening your store straight away, or whether your staff are going to remain on furlough for a few more weeks. I'd really be interested to know. And bear in mind, this is an anonymous poll. If you're thinking, that's it, I'm not going to open my physical store again, or my physical stores again, let us know, because I'd really like to see it. We have seen reports that some 25% of independent retailers, and that's across the board, independent retailers, not specifically fashion, are not intending to open their physical stores again. They will just continue to be online retailers, or they will just cease trading altogether. So I'd just like to know from this cohort how you're feeling about that. So I'm going to check out the poll. Suzanne, it's over to you.
Yeah, so the poll is now live. If you could all just click on the polls tab, you'll be able to take part. I can see a few people. I can see the bars moving.
It's not going to for me. Oh, hang on. Oh no, I'm looking at the wrong one. Okay. Okay, so this is a more closely run thing, but for the most part, approaching 60% are going to open as soon as you're able to. And
might be worth leaving it for a few more seconds. They're starting to even out. Oh, that's interesting.
Isn't it? Isn't it interesting? I did speak to an analyst who told me that they expected quite a lot of the smaller brands and retailers to wait to open. And
yeah, I think there's always this assumption.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, so there's always this assumption that people will want to open as soon as they can open their doors, but I think it's interesting what you were saying there.
Yeah, I think that there is among the general public that retailers are desperate to open as soon as they can. But the people who are taking part in this survey will know far better than I would that whether you're an independent or a multiple, some of those stores are just not going to be worth opening until the demand is there, and some of them just may not be worth opening again. I'm pleased to say, though, that looking at this survey here, which looks like it's settled down, this mini survey, only 4% of you may never reopen your stores, because I've got some good news coming up about independent stores that might make you feel a little bit more confident about it. But yes, there is this perception among the general public that you're all chomping at the bit to throw open the doors, but it may not make sense to do so straight away. There we are. Enjoyed that one.
Just to touch on that, because I know there's a few people in the chat who said that they can't see it as their suppliers, but just to update you, we had about 54% say that they would open straight away.
Yes, yeah.
It's okay. 41% say that they would wait until the demand was there, and about 2% who said they may not open their physical store. Sorry to interrupt you, Lauretta.
No, that's good. Sorry, I forgive me. I didn't realise that unless you took part in it, you can't see the actual results. Yeah. So yes, for the suppliers, that's quite interesting to know. Clearly, that there's quite a large chunk there that are going to hold fire until it makes financial sense for them to do so. And thanks for taking part in that, and that was very enlightening. We're going to do a feature on this. So this was why I said that was a self-interested question. If any of you are interested in chatting about it, please email me because I'd like to know. We're going to do a feature on that on TheIndustry.fashion in the next week or so, just to gauge opinion on reopening strategies for independent brands and retailers. So, like I say, my email will be at the end of the presentation. If you wanted to participate in that feature, I'm going to screen grab that. Sorry. So I've got it.
I can send it to you post session, Lauretta, as well. Don't worry.
I think that's fantastic. It's a useful little anecdote there for me to add into that feature. So thank you very much. So there we are. I'm going to move on now to shopping post lockdown. Again, huge unsurprise here. This is a feature taken from the index. Again, you'll have to go and download that report as well if you wanted to see these slides. But we ask every month, we say to our participants, and this one was taken start of April as well, are you going to spend more on fashion in the next 6 months? Are you going to spend less? Are you going to buy more items? Are you going to buy fewer items? And it doesn't really move that much. It's usually a percentage point here and there. But we asked them this time, and bear in mind this was literally just as we'd gone into lockdown. Are you going to spend less? This is talking about the value, the amount that they're going to spend on fashion, not necessarily the volume, although that wasn't exactly a pretty picture either. 63% of them said, I'm going to spend less on fashion. That's the black piece of that circle. And when you look at the chart, the bar chart in the middle, the black is the I'm going to spend less. And you can see that becoming more and more pronounced as the consumer gets older. And we've already discussed why the older consumer might not be in the mood for buying more fashion right now. But it's a large amount of people who are saying that they're going to spend less. So the key for anybody really is to make sure that they get their share of the spend that is there. Okay. So demand is going to be suppressed. It will be suppressed for some time. And as we already said at the start, it's looking like 2022 before we get to 2019 recovery levels. One of the drivers for spenders at any time is social media and marketing. I wish I'd put in a poll about this because I love the polls, but I'll just share.
We could do a quick one on the fly. Yeah, what do you want? Go on, what's the question?
Social shopping. Because I've noticed quite a lot of independent retailers are doing this, and I love it. I just think it's such a brilliant way to connect with your consumers and do so on an ongoing basis. I talked to you about that fandom around independent retail. I'd really love to know if you're doing it. This is an Instagram live that I've just taken a snapshot of from a brand called Evie Loves Toast. I don't know so it's a retailer actually called Evie Loves Toast, and it's local to me. I live in Cobham in Surrey, and they've got a store here and one in Wimbledon, I think. And it's it's a sort of, they sell Scandinavian fashion brands and lifestyle products. It's a beautiful little store, and they have done such a terrific job during lockdown of local selling through their Instagram account. They do have an online e-store, so you can go online and buy it, but they're also selling through their Instagram channel, and it is really simple to do. So a member of their team goes into store. They can't open the store, but she is in the shop, going through the rails, talking about what's on sale. She tries it on. She talks to you about it. You can send her messages, and they pack it in. They'll toddle off to the post office, package it up, and send it to you locally. And they'll send it to you free if you're a local. And I think this is such a positive move. It's such a great innovation. Harrods is actually doing this from this week, like a VIP shop. So they've got personal shoppers within their store, and they've been slower than the independents on this. So they've got people, scouting the store and picking up product for people that are getting in touch via direct messaging and via Instagram and sending it on to them. And I've just really enjoyed seeing a number of independents do this. And I think for me, this is far more powerful, and certainly for you, far cheaper than using influencers. This is much more authentic. This is me in my shop. I have chosen these products for you because I know you will love them. I'm trying them on. We will send them to you free locally. You can continue to do this after you open your store. I just love it. So I wonder, Suzanne, if anybody's tried it.
So the poll is live.
Yeah.
Are any of you social shopping? Lauretta, if you answer that, you can see we've already had some responses through.
Ah, there you go. So some of you are. So it's still moving. So for those of you, okay.
I decided to add in a not yet because it might be something maybe that people haven't thought about yet, but maybe it's something they could give a go. So I thought it'd be interesting to pop that in there as well.
Yeah, I think I know that some independent retailers will have e-commerce availability, or they might be part of a larger marketplace like an Atelier or Truva or what have you. But this was just a really personal way of doing it, and it really spoke to that point I made earlier about your local fans. And I thought it was just a nice example. I don't know if the Evie Loves Toast people are online. If you are, congratulations, I love it. So it's a pretty much even split. So 38% of you said you are trying it, 38% of you are not, and 25% not yet. So that suggests that you might give it a whirl. Yeah, check out your fellow independents' Instagrams and get some tips and see what's working. And I'm sure that you will, share with each other what's successful and not. But I just really like it. I think it's a really good way to keep sales going and keep the connection with your consumer in lockdown situations or at any time. Thank you for that. I'm going to do another little screen grab. I'm loving these. Thanks, Suzanne, for facilitating that part.
That's all right.
I'll move on. So that's social media and marketing. It will continue to be important, but think about different ways of doing it and play to your strengths. That's all I would say to you. Formats and channels. This is in the COVID-19 report. Please go download it. We asked people how this time of confinement, if you will, this time of almost abstention from fashion and shopping, will change their behaviour as we emerge from the lockdown. What do you imagine it will look like? About a third of people, just under a third of people, said their habits won't change. I don't believe them, but they've said that. I think everything has changed in this time. 30% here have said they will buy fewer clothes. So I refer you back to my previous slide where I said something like 64% said they will spend less. This is volume. 30% I'm going to buy fewer clothes. I think there's probably an expectation that they'll be able to buy their clothes more cheaply for a period in time as we go into sale after this. But note here, okay, that 20% will shop more online. If you haven't got an online offer of some description, per my previous point, it might be worth looking at it. And it's not necessarily a classic e-commerce play. It could be that you do join a marketplace. eBay, for example, has been inundated with smaller brands and retailers taking part in their marketplace over the past few weeks, and they are continuing to offer, I think, what is it? They take a commission-free
Free
sales.
listing.
Yeah, exactly. So that might be another way that you would get online at a low cost and continue to be able to make sales. But bear in mind, people will still be somewhat reluctant to shop physically for some time to come. The interesting thing that's happened, obviously, with online retail is that the older consumer has had to do it. They've had to get to it, and before they didn't really shop that much online for fashion, but they've had to do it. And as they've got accustomed to it, as they've got used to it, they will continue to do that. But there are some chinks of light here as well. 11% of people are going to say they'll buy more clothes. I'm one of the 11%. I'm here to support you, not only producing content by buying your lovely clothes, so I'll be there. And I have been buying under lockdown anyway. I've been supporting the brands that I particularly like and I would like to see survive, and who have always provided me with a good service. And if they've got products that I like, I have continued to buy them. And yes, I'm not typical because I'm immersed in this market, but I don't think that I'm alone in that. And 11% have also said that they will buy more in physical stores. There is, I think, this sense among the consumer that they have been deprived that physical interaction with people, and they will want to do that when they get out of this state of lockdown. Obviously, they'll have to do it 2 meters apart from you, whatever it is, but that they will want to see people. They will want to experience something. There's only so much that digital technology can replicate or replace an actual real life experience. And I, for one, am just craving something very simple like sitting in a cafe with a coffee. You can't do that online, and I can't have a nice chat to a person in a boutique and see all of their product and touch all their product online. So there will be a craving for more of that, but just take a note of that. 20% of people are going to shop more online. I think some of your customers might have migrated to that channel. They may not come back that quickly. Ethics. Talked about this very a moment ago when I was saying about the kinds of content that people would like to hear from you right now. This is a further slide that develops on that. So post-lockdown, ethics will be paramount. They are now, and they will continue to do so. So there's some nice stuff in here, though, if you're an independent retailer. But first of all, we ask people to rank certain factors in terms of the things that will most make them support a brand post-lockdown. 43% said that they would support brands who have supported others and their staff throughout this time. So if you've done good work and you've got stories to tell, make sure you let your customers know that, because they will pay you back. They will pay you back for that. We do a very interesting study in the index every month where we give 100 top brands and retailers a buzz score. I say we give it, we don't give it, consumers give them a buzz score. That is their positive and negative sentiment netted off against each other. If you have time at some point in the coming days, go and look at the April study and go and look at the brands and the buzz scores section of the index, because that was taken at about the same time that we took this study. And there are 100 brands and retailers, and you will see quite clearly that those people that handled lockdown well have a higher approval rating from their customers, from customers in general, than those who handled lockdown badly. Sports Direct, for example, which really made a hash of it, and that's a great shame because their approval rating had been rising over the past few months. Their approval rating is now at -21, all because they made a hash of doing the lockdown, basically. But brands like John Lewis and M&S and a few others have all gone up. They've seen their brand approval ratings increase quite dramatically because they handled it well. They closed the stores that they had to close in a timely manner. They looked after their staff. They did community support as well. So those are brands that will continue to benefit from that goodwill as we move forward. But here's a couple of factors, I suppose, metrics that should give you heart. So those of you that, and I'm pleased to say there are very few of you, but those of you who are thinking, is it worth me opening my shop again? I don't blame you. But those smaller brands and retailers, as we've become used to working at home, have become lifelines for local communities, like the local convenience store, your local post office, all of that. And the same will happen for the local fashion retailers as well. 32% of the people that we surveyed said they would help smaller brands and retailers get back on their feet. They're going to be more likely to go and buy from a smaller brand or independent retailer because they want them to still be around. I think they've learned to value them. They're living more locally now. 27% said that they will go local with their shopping, will go more local with their shopping. And 24% will go back into those stores, be more likely to go back into those stores that have been forced to close because they want to support them. They want you to still be there for them moving forward. Don't be complacent about that though, because I just did a word of caution. I did say to you that people would be more likely to shop online. Might be with you, but if you don't have online, then they can't do that. So take some heart from that, because you can benefit from this time, this horrendous time we've been through. You will be rewarded if the customer feels like you've been a decent citizen, and I'm sure that you all have been. So that is just my approximately 41-minute run through of our report, and I urge you all to please go and download it. I should say, you know, I'm an independent business and a business owner as well, so I'm going through all of this with you. I send you my solidarity, and I hope you enjoy reading it. Before we get on to Q&A, these are our contact details. I'm Lauretta, that's me at the top, and my business partner Anthony, that's his email as well. These are all our Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn handles. Please connect with us. Please tell us what it is you'd like to read about. Please tell us your experiences. We'd love to write about you. You'd like to be featured. You know, like we say, business owner to business owner, we're here, and we would love to hear from you. But I just hope you found something in there that will inspire you and keep you going as we move forward. So, Suzanne, I'm going to...
We do have a few questions come through.
Okay.
Thank you so much. So many interesting things in there, and I'll do the questions for everyone else before I get to my own curiosities.
Oh, okay.
So we have a question from John. Do you think fashion retailers now need to compete on in-store experience and theatre to differentiate themselves from competitors?
Yes, and that's quite interesting. I did think about touching on that, but I didn't really have an awful lot of time. But I really do think that, because if people are going to make the effort to come into your store, you're going to have to make it that bit more exciting and that bit more pleasurable for them to go in there. And that doesn't mean to say that you have to have, you know, fireworks and marching bands in your store just to get people to come in, but it can just be very simple things, a bit like that social shopping that I was showing you, where you've got people who are giving you tutorials, people who are giving you advice. There's something very personal about it, and something that's much more entertaining about going in there than just shopping online, because shopping online is largely about efficiency, isn't it? So I think if you can do it, you certainly should do it. I think what's happening on the high street right now, and I'm talking about the larger multiples here, are the ones that were frankly undifferentiated and a little bit uninteresting, are the ones that we are seeing go bust first, because they were in trouble already, and this unfortunately has been the thing that has tipped them over the edge. And as independent retailers, which I know many of you are, you have got the benefit of being differentiated. You can put on a good show for people reasonably cheaply that just makes them think, oh, that's part of the community. It's entertaining going there. It's interesting going there. I think it will become ever more vital. At the other end of the scale, I think bigger retailers will see a lot more investment in technology to make the in-store experience more personal to you, lots more interaction with your mobile phone, and sort of grander scale events. Selfridges is probably the perfect example of that. But at both ends of the spectrum, I think we will see experience coming to the fore even more.
Great. So we have a question from Coral, and I think this goes back to one of your earlier slides. Going back to why independents are less popular online, do you think it's because consumers feel that they are lacking in expertise?
I think it's that, actually. I think it's a matter of trust. If you're putting your credit card into a website and you're spending a lot of money, and you think, is this actually going to turn up? And when it turns up, will it turn up quickly? You know, I think they go to the places that they know are experts at this, and this is what they do. I'm sorry to say, I sort of behave like that myself, because sometimes I'll find something on a smaller brand, and then I'll see that maybe Matches has got it, and I think I know Matches do this really well, and I know they'll send it to me tonight, so I'll go there and get it. It is a matter of expertise, but you, like I say, you can circumvent that by potentially going on to places like Truva and Atelier and these Farfetch, if that's your sector. Farfetch has definitely seen its brand value increase in the past recent weeks, because they've been really helping independent retailers. So you can get that cachet of being in an expert environment by joining one of those marketplaces, I would say, and using your social channels to hook people in and getting them to buy on your own online channels, and then making sure that you deliver. I mean, you've really got to earn your stripe when it comes to service, I think, online. So once people learn to trust you and they will keep shopping with you. But yeah, it's definitely a question of expertise, and I just think speed as well.
I would add to that trust. I think
Yeah.
you mentioned it before. I think for a lot of independents, their customers can't necessarily find them, but you do have one thing insofar as if an order does go awry, if people do have an issue, they could actually speak to you directly, and it gives you the opportunity to build that trust and that relationship. So I think the more that you do look at your social media channels, and the more you interact with your customers and your local community, I think it'll just pay dividends if you're trying to get going online.
Definitely.
Sorry, Lauretta, I just thought I'd
add. No, I think that's right. No, I absolutely agree.
Yeah. Okay, so we have another question from Mena. If a local brand is about to launch for the first time, should they go ahead? Or do you think if it was you, you would necessarily wait a little bit longer?
Right now?
Yeah.
I think so. We've been writing about a few brands that have launched during this time, and I think people will be quite open to it. I mean, you're talking about a local brand, so maybe that's a local store or retailer. While people are still largely confined to their local neighbourhoods and feeling in the mood to support their local neighbourhoods, it could end up being the perfect time to launch locally. Don't please come back and sue me if you do it and it's a disaster. I think there is definitely an opportunity there while the consumer is in the mood to support people like you to do that, build up your local community, build up online, and also I mean, I've seen some nice examples of local brands and retailers coming together. So if you've got another non-competitive friendly local brand, and that might be a restaurant or a food retailer or something that works with you, you can kind of team up with them to do activities and tap into their customer base if it speaks to yours as well. So there's plenty of opportunity for collaboration, I think, to get a brand launched right now. But it could well be the perfect time to do it, I think.
Okay, great. I have another question. This is, I know that we've had this conversation a few times before this session. Do you think this will lead people away from fast fashion, as in buying less but more capsule collections and products that will last for, I suppose, those transitional products, those ones that last across multiple seasons?
Yeah, I think so. And I don't, this is a difficult one, I think, because I don't like to, I say this all the time, but I get asked these kind of questions all the time. I don't like wagging my finger at people about the choices that they make for their families and for themselves. Some people are on such limited budgets, and I don't want to be saying you shouldn't shop at Primark, because if that's all the money that they've got, then go ahead and do that. Do what's right for you. Do what's right for your budget. You know, we're grateful to have you as part of, you know, the fashion consuming community. I don't like to moralise about it, but I do think we have been forced to slow down, and we're not wearing as much, because what's the point? There's nowhere to go in it except for your sort of state approved daily exercise or whatever it may be. Some of you, I realise, will be working, so you will do that. But I think people have generally been made to slow down. They're not consuming as much, in terms of fashion as they once were, and they've probably realised that they've got a load of stuff that they will never wear and they hardly ever wear, so they will naturally edit their purchases moving forward. And it would be a nice consequence if people invested more in fewer items, kept them for longer, and then topped them up with other purchases. I also think what will happen is people will look at different models, and this might be something for independent retailers to consider. And I haven't gone into it, but again, there is another report on our site about this. You might consider introducing something like a rental offer within your store as well for some of the more expensive show-stopping pieces. It may be that you will struggle to sell them in the coming months because people can't afford to buy them outright, but they might rent them from you. You know, they might use those to introduce some interest into their wardrobes, into their base wardrobes as well. So I think we'll see different methods of consumption where people will shift away from absolutely needing to own everything to potentially renting it if they want it. And also, what is interesting is that some of the bigger retailers are now, and I'm sure some of the smaller ones too, carrying stock over season to season. So they're not just thinking, oh, well, it was delivered for spring summer, so I've literally got to clear it spring summer. They'll carry it over because they kind of have to at the moment, unless they need the cash, in which case clear it, get the cash, protect your business. But that mentality within the retailers is that there can be much more continuity product. And that will then seep into the behaviour, I think, of the consumer as well.
Great. So really interesting question actually from Arga. So she says, so do fashion retailers pay independent personal shoppers and stylists to help them sell items tailored to their customers' needs? I think maybe this comes back to how you engage. So when we go back, this question popped up when you were talking about social selling, and getting those people in line. I hope that's, and from what I remember when that popped through, what do you think? Do you think it's something they should be doing in their stores themselves, or do you think it should be something that potentially a stylist or an influencer could really help develop that kind of tailored approach for customers?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and you can do either. Personally, I like it, and the ones that I've spotted and I warm to the most are the ones where it is the store staff, because it feels more authentic to me. You know, it's, and or the buyer or the owner of the store, it just feels more authentic to me because they are the ones that have gone out and bought this product to bring to their consumers, and they know why they bought it, they know why it spoke to them, and they know how they would imagine their customer wearing it. So I personally quite like that, and I don't mind, you know, the content that people are creating right now. Look at us, you know, we're both sitting in our homes talking to people. It's not a grand production, but it's still a really engaging and an interesting format, and I've loved doing it, and I hope people have loved watching it. I think people are more forgiving now that things are a bit lo-fi and a bit more homemade, as long as they're authentic and they're real. So I wouldn't be scared of doing it yourself. If you don't think that you've got the skills in house to do it, if you feel like you need to inject a bit of stardust and bring in a celebrity stylist into your store, I think go ahead and do that, or a you know, high profile influencer, go ahead and do that, but it's not necessary, I would say.
So I'm going to do two questions now, or we've got two questions and then we'll start to wrap up. So, and this one, just, we haven't really touched on here, but I think as we're talking about the merger of kind of physical and digital, and how we interact with our customers and our consumers, what are your thoughts on VR shopping?
Yeah, I've seen some examples of it coming through in the past week. People are doing well, and actually also VR wholesale shopping as well. I've seen as well, and I I quite like it. I think we'll probably see more of that. It's fairly early stage, and I feel fairly up for that. I think it's quite cool. I think it will. It's a very good way of replicating that physical experience. I don't think it will ever completely replace it. I don't think that at all. But I quite like it. I think it's pretty engaging. So, yeah.
I think, just as a follow-on, and this is my own personal vanity question, but I'm more interested in augmented AR, augmented reality in store. I think that's got some fascinating experience elements.
Yeah, it does. And also there's some clever, just some very basically clever stuff going on with people, like because people haven't been able to physically retail. They also haven't been able to do photo shoots and create content in the normal way, but using people. This period of time has forced people to innovate in that regard. And the one thing stuck in my head that I thought was super clever was, in terms of AR, was ASOS are now putting their clothing on 5 or 6 different types of model now, so different sizes, different ethnicities, so that when you're browsing their products, you can see them in very different ways and perhaps relate more readily to one or other of those models. And they've had to do that because they can't shoot their clothes on models at the moment due to social distancing. And it's forced them to be innovative, and it's forced them to do something that actually creates a much better experience for the customer. So that's quite nice, I think, that we're seeing stuff like that coming through.
Okay, great. And one last question. So Bianca sent a question through, which I think is really fascinating. And I saw a report last week from Euromonitor that talked about this as well as a potential growth. So what do you think about vintage and second-hand stores? Do you see growth in that sector?
Yeah, I think that also ties in with what I said about rental as well. Yes, I do see growth in that sector. And I can't give you a number. I wish I'd got one off the top of my head. But I think people are going to be much more likely to be up for purchasing used clothing. Like I said, we're kind of moving away from this, I absolutely have to own everything and I have to have it brand new. You know, that psyche is shifting. And also, let's be frank, if there is any among you who haven't done what I've done and look at all the stuff they've got around them and think, I need a great big clear out, I would be surprised, because I think there'll be a rush of people looking to shift a lot of the clothing that they've got and shed some of their possessions right now. So there should be a bit of a glut of product on the market for people to pick up right now and resell. So, and I've seen quite a few of those do that social shopping as well. There's another little nice brand called Phoenix that are doing the social shopping at the moment, where they're Chanel handbags and goodness knows what else. They're selling those via a social channel. So yes, I do see just a shift away generally from ownership of brand new stuff, and people will be much more readily up for buying something that's been loved before and sharing something with somebody else. Don't have a number for you, but it will be growing, I'm sure.
Yeah. Perfect. Thank you. Well, thank you so much, Lauretta. I've absolutely loved talking to you. And I can see by all of the comments, I think your insight around this, and certainly some of the slides you've shown, have been absolutely fascinating for our audience as well. Yes, obviously, we'll hope to have you back sometime soon.
Well, I would love to.
Great. And for everyone, just keep an eye out for an email from us. It'll come through in the next kind of 5 or 10 minutes with a link to the report where you can learn a little bit more about what we've talked about today, and also the link to this session. If you joined late or you want to replay or share it, please do. But thank you everyone for joining us today.
Thank you. Thanks, Suzanne.
Bye.
Bye. Good luck.